The notification pinged at 3:17 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. Marcus Rivera, 42, a cybersecurity consultant who'd been managing his late mother's estate from 2 states away, stared at his phone in complete disbelief. The smart home security app showed lots of movement in the backyard of the Pittsburgh property he'd been trying to sell for 3 months. He switched to the pool camera and felt his blood pressure spike. 8 teenagers, inflatable floats, a portable speaker blasting music. Red Solo cups scattered across the limestone deck his mother had saved for 2 years to install. This wasn't the first time. For 6 weeks, ever since he'd listed the house, someone had been using his property like their personal resort. Broken gate locks, trampled flower beds. His mother's garden gnomes, the ones she collected for 30 years, smashed and thrown in the pool. The police had been useless, telling him to install better locks and be more vigilant from 600 miles away. But Marcus wasn't just any homeowner. He was a man who designed security systems for Fortune 500 companies, and 3 weeks ago he'd begun implementing a very special upgrade to his mother's house. Tonight, these kids would learn that not every vacant property was undefended, and the exhausted son they'd been disrespecting was about to teach them a lesson in consequences they'd never forget. Before we dive into how Marcus turned his grief into calculated justice, if you love stories where entitled trespassers finally meet someone who's 10 steps ahead of them, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you'll want to see exactly how this tech-savvy son made them regret every second. This is a story in 3 parts. The violation that turned mourning into rage, the trap that caught them completely off guard, and the resolution where 8 cocky teenagers learned the hardest way possible that some people fight back with precision. In the first part, you'll experience Marcus's emotional journey, how repeated violations of his mother's sanctuary pushed a grieving son past his breaking point. The sleepless nights reviewing footage, the failed attempts to get help, the moment he stopped asking for justice and started building it himself. Every broken lock told a story. Every destroyed memory made his resolve stronger. And when peaceful solutions failed completely, Marcus did what he did best. He analyzed the problem, identified the vulnerabilities, and designed a solution his adversaries would never see coming. In the second part, the trap springs with surgical precision. The moment Marcus activated his upgrades remotely, the teenage laughter that turned to confusion, then panic. The revelation that every single one of them had been identified, tracked, and documented. The confrontation where power shifted completely, where 8 kids who thought they owned the summer discovered they'd been performing for an audience of one very angry, very prepared cybersecurity expert who knew their parents' names, their schools, and exactly how much their families' reputations meant to them. In the third part, justice unfolds with consequences that ripple through an entire community. How parents reacted when confronted with undeniable evidence. The punishment that fit the crime perfectly. The twist that made the lesson unforgettable. And the moment Marcus finally found peace in his mother's house again, knowing she'd be proud of how he defended the home she loved. Here's exactly how it happened. Marcus had inherited the house in March, 3 months after his mother Eleanor passed from complications of pneumonia at 68. The 4-bedroom colonial in Pittsburgh's Squirrel Hill neighborhood had been her pride and joy for 40 years. Every corner filled with memories Marcus wasn't ready to sort through yet. His wife Sarah and their 2 kids were settled in Atlanta. His job demanded he be on site. So Marcus made the painful decision to sell, hiring a local realtor and installing a basic security system to monitor the empty property. The house sat vacant but maintained, waiting for the right buyer. The lawn, service coming weekly, the inside preserved exactly as Eleanor had left it. The first incident happened on a Friday in late April. Marcus was in a client meeting when his phone buzzed with a motion alert. He checked the app during a bathroom break and saw the aftermath. The side gate hanging open, wet footprints across. The deck, empty beer cans floating in his mother's saltwater pool. His chest tightened. Someone had been swimming in her pool. The pool where he'd learned to swim at age 6, where his kids had splashed with their grandmother just last summer. Marcus called the local police non-emergency line and filed a report. The officer who responded took notes, photographed the evidence, and told Marcus what he already knew. Without catching someone in the act, there wasn't much they could do. Install better locks, the officer suggested. Maybe cameras with clearer resolution. Marcus hung up feeling dismissed and powerless. 2 weeks later, it happened again. This time, the security footage caught them arriving 5 teenagers, maybe 16 or 17, climbing over the fence at 7 p.m. on a Wednesday. Marcus watched from his Atlanta office as they cannonballed into the pool, tossed his mother's carefully arranged deck furniture into the deep end, and used her decorative rocks to play some kind of throwing game that shattered her antique bird bath. He called the police again. Different officer, same useless response. The footage wasn't clear enough to identify anyone. Marcus should consider hiring private security. He should be there in person. He felt his frustration building into something darker. These weren't random vandals. This was targeted, repeated, deliberate. Someone local who knew the house was vacant and thought they could use it with impunity. The breaking point came 3 weeks after that. On a Sunday morning in mid-May, Marcus was having breakfast with his family when the notification came through. He opened the app and felt something crack inside him. 10 people this time. A full party in progress. And there, floating in the pool among the inflatable flamingos and beer coolers, were pieces of his mother's garden gnomes. The gnome she'd started collecting on their first family vacation to Maine in 1985. The gnomes that had survived 40 Pittsburgh winters, smashed, used as pool toys, tossed around like garbage. His 7-year-old daughter Emma noticed his face and asked if he was okay. Marcus lied and said yes, then excused himself to make a call he knew would go nowhere. The officer who answered his third police report sounded tired. Had he considered just draining the pool until the house sold? Maybe removing anything valuable? Marcus thanked him and hung up, his hands shaking with rage he didn't know he possessed. His mother's sanctuary was being defiled, and the people paid to protect property were telling him to surrender. That afternoon, Marcus stopped expecting help and started planning revenge. If the police couldn't catch them, he would. If the law wouldn't hold them accountable, he would find another way. He was a cybersecurity consultant who specialized in integrated smart home defense systems. He knew cameras, sensors, automation, and remote access. And over the next 21 days, Marcus converted his mother's house from a passive victim into an active trap. He replaced every camera with 4,000 models with facial recognition capability. He installed smart locks on every entry point, each controlled from his phone. He upgraded the pool cover a motorized retractable system his mother had installed for safety with commercial-grade controls and fail-safes. He added pressure sensors on the deck that would alert him the moment someone stepped on the property. And he spent his evenings running facial recognition software on his existing footage, slowly identifying the repeat offenders through social media, school photos, and public records. Marcus Rivera wasn't just a grieving son anymore. He was a man on a mission. And when everything was finally in place on June 4th, he waited, because he knew they'd come back. They always did. The trap sprang at 3:17 p.m. on Tuesday, June 11th. Marcus was working from home when his phone lit up with alerts, motion sensors, pressure sensors, cameras all triggering simultaneously. He switched to the live feed and felt a cold smile spread across his face. 8 of them this time. All familiar faces from previous footage. They'd scaled the fence, set up their speaker, and were in various stages of stripping down for another unauthorized pool party. Marcus watched them for exactly 90 seconds, documenting everything, then stood up from his desk. His wife Sarah looked up from her laptop. "Is it them?" she asked. Marcus nodded, his fingers already moving across his phone's interface. "Watch this," he said quietly. He activated the pool cover. The motorized cover deployed with a low mechanical hum that took 3 seconds to register over their music. The heavy vinyl began rolling out from its concealed housing, moving across the water's surface at 2 feet per second. Marcus watched their confused faces on camera as they realized what was happening. The girl on the pink flamingo float looked up first, her expression shifting from relaxed to puzzled. A boy near the diving board tried to swim toward the edge but found his path blocked by the advancing cover. Panic rippled through the group. They started yelling, swimming frantically toward the sides, but Marcus had timed it perfectly. The cover sealed completely before anyone could exit the pool, transforming the open water into an enclosed space with 8 trapped teenagers floating beneath heavy-duty vinyl, in 3 feet of water between the cover and the surface. He could hear their muffled shouting through the camera audio. Perfect. He let them panic for exactly 30 seconds, long enough to be terrifying, short enough to be safe, then triggered the intercom system he'd installed last week. His voice boomed across the property, amplified through outdoor speakers. Everyone remain calm and stay exactly where you are. This is Marcus Rivera, the property owner. You're trespassing on private property, and every second of your presence has been recorded in 4K video with facial recognition timestamps. The shouting stopped. The silence that followed was beautiful. Marcus continued, his voice cold and controlled. I'm going to retract this cover in 1 minute. When I do, you will exit the pool, sit on the deck in a line, and wait. If anyone tries to run, I will call the police immediately and press charges for breaking and entering, trespassing, property destruction, and anything else my lawyer can make stick. Do you understand? A chorus of muffled yes responses came through. Marcus smiled and pressed the retract button. The cover rolled back, revealing 8 terrified faces. They scrambled out of the pool, 3 boys, 5 girls, all between 15 and 17 years old, based on Marcus's research. They sat on the limestone deck in a shivering line, their summer afternoon suddenly very cold despite the June heat. Marcus watched them through the camera, letting them squirm for 2 full minutes while he pulled up his prepared files. Then he activated the intercom again. Let's start with introductions. You've been using my property. I think it's only fair I know who you are. He started with the boy on the left, a lanky kid with bleached hair who'd appeared in 3 previous incidents. Brandon Kowalski, 17, 2847 Deniston Avenue, son of Christine and Robert Kowalski. Your dad works at UPMC as an orthopedic surgeon. You go to Taylor Alderdice High School, junior year varsity lacrosse team. I have video of you destroying my mother's bird bath on May 23rd. Brandon's face went white. The girl next to him gasped. Marcus continued down the line with methodical precision. Jessica Chun, 16, 5523 Forbes Avenue. Daughter of Margaret and David Chun. Your mom's a partner at Reed Smith Law Firm. I have footage of you here 4 separate times, including the incident where my mother's garden gnomes ended up in the pool. Jessica started crying. He identified all 8 Tyler Morrison, whose father owned a chain of car dealerships. Ashley Brennan, whose mother was on the school board. Twins Connor and Caitlin Hughes, whose parents ran a local real estate agency. Maya Patel, whose father was a city councilman. Zoe Martinez, whose mother taught at Carnegie Mellon. And Emma Wu, whose parents owned 3 restaurants in Shadyside. I know where you live. I know where you go to school. I know your parents' names, their jobs, their phone numbers, and their email addresses, Marcus said through the speakers. I have 6 weeks of security footage showing repeated trespassing and property destruction at this address. I have facial recognition matches. I have time-stamped evidence. I have photos of several $1,000s in damage. Now here's what's going to happen. The 8 teenagers sat frozen, water pooling around them on the deck his mother had loved. Marcus felt no mercy. You have 2 choices. Choice 1. I call your parents right now. Send them all the footage. File police reports for trespassing and property destruction, and pursue civil suits for damages to this property. Pennsylvania law is very clear on trespassing. Your parents will face the legal bills, the social embarrassment, and you'll all have police records that colleges will see. Or, he paused for effect. Choice 2. You restore this property to perfect condition within 48 hours. You let that sink in. The gate you broke gets professionally repaired. The garden gnomes you destroyed get replaced with exact equivalents. And yes, I have photos and purchase records from everyone. The bird bath gets replaced. The deck gets professionally cleaned. The pool gets professionally serviced. You split the cost 8 ways. I estimate around $3,000 total, so roughly $375 each. You have until Thursday at 6 p.m. I will inspect everything personally. If the work isn't perfect, Choice 1 activates automatically. A girl in the middle, Maya Patel, raised her hand like she was in class. What if we can't afford it? Marcus's laugh was harsh. Your father's a city councilman, Maya. I've seen your house. You can afford it. The question is whether you want to explain to your parents why you need $375 or why they're being sued for $10,000 plus attorney's fees. Choose wisely. Tyler Morrison, the car dealer's son, tried to negotiate. How do we know you won't just call our parents anyway? Marcus had expected this. Because unlike you, I keep my word. You restore the property. We're done. You run, I have your information and this footage forever. I suggest you start making phone calls. He paused, then delivered the final blow. Oh, and one more thing. The smart locks I installed keep logs. I know exactly which of you has been here before, how many times, and for how long. This wasn't some one-time mistake. This was systematic disrespect of a deceased woman's property. My mother died 3 months ago. This was her home for 40 years. And you turned it into your personal playground. So no, I don't feel bad about making you pay to fix what you broke. You have 48 hours. I suggest you start problem solving. He disconnected the intercom. Through the camera, he watched 8 teenagers sit in stunned silence for nearly a minute before Brandon finally stood up, water dripping from his swim trunks, and said something to the group. They gathered their belongings, the speaker, the floats, the solo cups, and headed toward the gate in complete silence. Marcus watched them leave, then smiled for the first time since his mother's funeral. Thursday at 5:30 p.m., Marcus's security system notified him of arrivals at the property. He switched to the camera feed and saw all 8 teenagers returning, this time accompanied by various contractors and carrying cleaning supplies. He watched for 2 hours as they worked scrubbing the deck on hands and knees, carefully placing replacement garden gnomes that actually matched the originals, supervising the gate repair company they'd hired, directing the pool service professionals they'd called. By 7 p.m., Marcus decided it was time to appear in person. He'd driven up from Atlanta the night before, staying in a hotel, preparing for this moment. When he pulled into the driveway, the teenagers froze like deer in headlights. Marcus stepped out of his car wearing jeans and his mother's favorite Steelers hoodie, the one she'd worn every Sunday during football season. He walked past a line of nervous teenagers without acknowledging them and began inspecting. The gate professionally repaired with new hinges and a commercial-grade lock. He tested it 3 times. Solid. The gnomes, he counted them twice. All 17 replaced with remarkable accuracy, right down to the fishing gnome with the tiny painted rod. He felt an unexpected lump in his throat. The bird bath new Italian marble actually nicer than the original. The deck was spotless. He could see his reflection in the limestone. Marcus walked to the pool and dipped his hand in. Crystal clear. Perfectly balanced chemicals. He checked the equipment room. New filters. They'd gone above and beyond. He turned to face the 8 teenagers, who stood in a line again, this time exhausted and covered in cleaning residue instead of pool water. Jessica Chun looked like she'd been crying. Connor Hughes had a sunburn across his shoulders from hours of work. Marcus folded his arms and made them wait while he considered. Finally, he spoke. Who organized this? Brandon Kowalski stepped forward. We all contributed, sir. Split it 8 ways like you said. Total came to $3,247, so about $406 each. We got extra stuff to make sure it was right. Marcus nodded slowly. Where'd you get the money? Silence. Then Ashley Brennan, the school board member's daughter, answered. Some of us had savings. Some of us asked our parents for it. Told them we needed it for summer plans. We didn't tell them what happened. She paused. Are you going to tell them? Marcus walked closer, stopping 5 feet from their line. Close enough that they had to look up at him. That depends on what you learned. More silence. Then Maya Patel, the councilman's daughter who asked about affording it, spoke up. Her voice shook. We learned that this wasn't just some vacant house. It was someone's home. Your mom's home. We didn't think about that. We just saw an empty pool and thought no one would care. Tears started rolling down her face. I'm really sorry about your mom. We saw the obituary when we were trying to find gnomes online. We didn't know. That doesn't make it okay. But we didn't know. Marcus felt his carefully maintained anger waver. He hadn't expected genuine remorse. 6 weeks, he said quietly. For 6 weeks, you came here. Broke in, used her pool, destroyed her things. Things she collected for 30 years. Things that meant something. He gestured at the gnomes. That fishing one was from our trip to Bar Harbor when I was 12. She bought it from a street vendor because I just caught my first lobster and she wanted to remember it. You smashed it playing pool basketball. Jessica Chun's crying intensified. We're so sorry, she whispered. The twins, Connor and Caitlin Hughes, nodded in agreement. We were stupid, Connor said. We just wanted somewhere to hang out. Someone said the house was empty and the pool was heated. We didn't think about who owned it or what it meant. We just thought about ourselves. Marcus studied them for a long moment. The anger that had sustained him for 6 weeks was transforming into something else, not forgiveness exactly, but understanding that they were kids who'd made catastrophically poor choices and were now facing real consequences. You want to know if I'm calling your parents? He asked. They all nodded. Here's the deal. This ends now, completely. You never come within 100 feet of this property again. You see my for sale sign, you cross the street. If I catch any of you here, or if anything else happens to this house, I don't call your parents. I go straight to the police with everything I have. He pulled out his phone and showed them folders full of footage. I have facial recognition timestamps of every visit. Breaking and entering. Criminal trespassing. Property destruction. In Pennsylvania, that's serious. You'd all have records. He continued, but you did the work. You fixed what you broke. You showed up when I thought maybe you'd run. So here's what I'm offering, the same thing I offered Tuesday. This stays between us if it stays finished. But I'm installing additional security. Motion sensors that alert me and the police simultaneously. If you or any of your friends think about coming back, you'll find out very quickly that I'm done being patient. You looked at each of them in turn. Are we clear? 8 voices said yes in unison. Marcus nodded. Good. Now get out of here. And grow up. Life's too short to waste it disrespecting other people's property and memories. They filed toward the gate in silence, but Tyler Morrison stopped halfway and turned back. Mr. Rivera, the lawn service messed up your mom's roses. We noticed them when we were cleaning. We called a landscaper tomorrow to fix them. On us. Just wanted you to know. Marcus blinked in surprise. You didn't have to do that. Tyler shrugged. I know, but it seemed like she cared about them. They're really pretty. Or they were. We wanted to fix it. He turned and jogged after the others, leaving Marcus standing alone in his mother's backyard as the sun set over Pittsburgh. But the story wasn't finished. 2 days later, on Saturday morning, Marcus was inside the house sorting through his mother's belongings when he heard vehicles in the driveway. His security system showed 2 cars, and he recognized them immediately. the Kowalski's BMW and the Cheung's Tesla. His pulse quickened. The teenagers had told their parents. He armed himself with his phone, ready to show the evidence, and walked to the front door. But when he opened it, what he saw stopped him cold. Brandon Kowalski and Jessica Cheung stood on the porch with their parents. And all four adults looked furious, but not at Marcus. Dr. Robert Kowalski extended his hand. Mr. Rivera, I'm Robert Kowalski. This is my wife, Christine. Our son told us what happened. Everything. We're here to apologize and to tell you that he's grounded until September. Brandon stood behind his father, face red with shame. Margaret Chun stepped forward. I'm Margaret Chun from Reed Smith. Jessica confessed yesterday. She's lost her phone, her computer, and will be volunteering at a senior center all summer instead of the beach trip we planned. She handed Marcus an envelope. This is from all 8 families. The kids' Instagram group chat was very active Thursday night. They told everyone what they'd done, and every parent wanted to contribute. It's a check to cover your mother's estate property taxes, any remaining bills, whatever you need. Marcus opened the envelope. The check was for $5,000. He looked up in shock. This is too much. Margaret Chun shook her head. It's not enough. Your mother's house was violated repeatedly while you were grieving. Our children did that. They showed appalling judgment, entitlement, and disrespect. The money they paid for repairs was theirs to manage. This is from us as parents to acknowledge that we raised children who thought this was acceptable. It's not. She paused. Jessica told me about the garden gnomes, about the obituary, about what your mother's house meant. I'm ashamed that my daughter was involved, and I want you to know that there will be lasting consequences. But I also want to thank you for teaching her accountability when apparently her father and I failed to. Dr. Kowalski added, Brandon told me what you said about life being too short to waste disrespecting people's memories. That hit home. My own father passed last year. I would have destroyed anyone who touched his things. He looked at his son. We talked for 3 hours last night about empathy, consequences, and respect. Brandon has 6 weeks of community service ahead of him, arranged through the courts voluntarily. He's going to learn what real work looks like. Marcus stood speechless in the doorway. The confrontation he prepared for had transformed into something unexpected. Parents who actually held their children accountable. I don't know what to say, he admitted. Christine Kowalski smiled sadly. Say you'll consider not selling? Your mother's house is beautiful. Squirrel Hill is a good neighborhood, despite what our teenagers tried to prove. If you do sell, know that we've all talked to our kids and their friends. No one will bother this property again. You have our word and our numbers. She handed him a business card. If anything happens, call us directly. After they left, Marcus sat on his mother's porch swing and called his wife. You're not going to believe what just happened, he said. Sarah listened as he explained, then laughed with relief. So it's over? Really over? Marcus looked at the gnomes lined up perfectly in the garden. At the roses, the landscaper was arriving to repair, at the house his mother had loved. Yeah, he said quietly. It's over. Justice served, lessons learned, and maybe some good came from something terrible. He hung up and sat in the evening quiet, watching lightning bugs begin their twilight dance across the lawn. Eleanor Rivera had maintained for 4 decades. 2 months passed before Marcus returned to Pittsburgh in August. The house had sold to a young family with 2 kids who promised to love it as much as Eleanor had. Marcus arrived on closing day to do a final walkthrough and found something unexpected on the front porch. 8 handwritten letters, each in a different envelope, held down by a garden gnome, the fishing one from Bar Harbor. He opened them one by one, reading teenage apologies that had evolved from the immediate shame of June into something deeper. Jessica Chun had written 3 pages about volunteering at the senior center. How she met residents who reminded her of her own grandmother. How she learned that vacant houses weren't just empty buildings, but repositories of lives lived and loved. Brandon Kowalski described his community service painting the senior center, how he thought about Marcus's mother every time he picked up a brush. Maya Pakel had included photos of a garden she'd started with her grandmother in honor of Eleanor, trying to grow some of the same roses. The twins had written a joint letter about how they told the story to their friends, becoming advocates against the entitlement culture they'd once embodied. Marcus sat on the porch swing one last time, reading letters from 8 teenagers who learned consequences and empathy the hard way. The new owners arrived with their realtor, a cheerful couple in their 30s with a 5-year-old daughter who immediately ran to look at the gnomes. Marcus watched her count them carefully, her face lighting up when she found the fishing one. 17 gnomes, she announced proudly. Her mother laughed. We'll take good care of them, I promise. Marcus believed her. He handed over the keys, took one last look at his mother's house, and walked to his car. As he drove away from Squirrel Hill, he felt something he hadn't experienced since March Peace. The violation had been answered. The disrespect had been corrected. 8 kids had learned lessons that might change who they became. And Eleanor Rivera's house would shelter another family's memories. Justice, Marcus reflected as Pittsburgh disappeared in his rearview mirror, wasn't always about punishment. Sometimes it was about teaching accountability at exactly the right moment, giving consequences that actually change behavior, and walking away knowing that the people who wronged you had genuinely grown from the experience. He defended his mother's legacy not just by making them fix what they broke, but by making sure they understood why it mattered. And as he merged onto I-76 heading home to Atlanta, Marcus smiled the same smile his mother used to give him when he'd learned an important lesson, and felt finally ready to let go. Across the country in Scottsdale, Arizona, retired Marine Colonel Denise Patterson was checking her vacation rental property's security cameras when she noticed something odd. 3 women in their 30s were hosting what appeared to be a bachelorette party in her luxury desert home, despite no reservation being on the books. Denise zoomed in on the ringleader popping champagne and laughed quietly. The woman was wearing a sash that read "Bride-to-be" and had no idea she was being watched by someone who planned military operations in 4 different countries. Denise pulled up the smart home controls she'd installed last month and considered her options. The pool heater, the automated blinds, the sound system, even the front gate, all at her fingertips. This should be interesting, she murmured, her finger hovering over the intercom button. But that's a story for another time.